Good morning, all of you. I welcome you all to Ansarkari. So, in this video, we'll be taking up the newspaper for 10th of February 2023. So, we see that shares of Adani Group, they still continue to decline after little bounce back. Then USA is saying that China's military is behind vast spy program. And our national security advisor says that people of Afghanistan are our priority. So, we'll be looking into all these aspects today. So small satellite launch vehicle D2, it will lift off from Sriharikota today. So basically this is from 10th of February and it will inject 3 satellites, which is ISRO's EOS 07, USA based Antares Janus 1 and Chennai based Space Kids Azadi Sat 2 into 450-kilometer orbit. So this is going to be the low Earth orbit and so Khelo India Winter Games are going to be held in Gulmarg, Jammu and Kashmir for this year. So that is there, and there are going to be 11 games, and all the states would be participating in this event. So this article is talking about India's economic growth. So the author is saying that enthusiastic cheerleaders of the rosy predictions of the growth of Indian economy, they need to be reminded about addressing the core issues of unemployment and ecological security. So obviously when you can't be just present, you can't present a rosy picture of our economic growth whenever there are like predictions and forecasts about the economic growth, because the main concern the author is saying that it is important to address the core issues, and majorly two of them are highlighted over here, which is unemployment and the ecological security. So the West self-interest in India. So India's rise in the global stage, it attracts attention in the West. First, there is an element of awe that a country, once a byword for famine, it has finally slawed off the dead weight of the colonial exploitation that lasted 2 centuries. Secondly, India is not only a relatively rare democracy in the East, but also the largest one in terms of population. And India has warmed India has warmed to this, and it makes strategic sense. So the economist is not far behind, though, and India's growing economic size that has also made it attractive in a way that it was not before. So this is not as a market for goods, though as the West manufacture, they are no longer alluring to Indians, but its fast growth is an investment opportunity for the surplus savings of the Western people. So, talking about jobs and ecology, sorry. So, let us simply assume that India will grow into a $5 trillion economy in 15 years, and this would be over 3 times its current size. So, will size bring along the attributes that we would like to see in an economy, or will it, in a worst case scenario, lead us to a dystopia induced by their absence? So, in particular, will the economic growth lead to employment opportunities for a growing population of youth and generate the social and physical infrastructure necessary for a good life? So certain questions are being raised over here regarding our economic growth. So unemployment, it was barely mentioned in the finance minister's budget speech. And government data show that in mid 2022, unemployment among the urban males, it was much higher than it was a decade ago. So definitely unemployment is on the rise, and the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy Private Limited show that the number of people employed in December 2022 was less than it was in 2016. And clearly the growth of The national economy has not generated an equal growth in employment. So, as we talk about the jobless growth, so again, we are seeing that phenomenon in the Indian economy, and which is obviously most often talked about. And talking about the infrastructure push, so in the continuing unemployment, we have seen that growth does not guarantee the things we would aspire to in the economy. Obviously, with growth, because we are not seeing job creation, enough job creation as per the population. And on the other hand, we see that the unbridled growth will almost certainly result in outcomes we would like to avoid, such as ecological insecurity. So, here the aspect regarding sustainable development has been talked about. Obviously, we aspire to be a developed world, a developed country by 2047, but at the same time, it is important that that development and growth is sustainable in nature. And we are also talking about energy transition. So whenever we are talking about energy transition, that should also be just in nature. And in case of energy transition, it is again important that we take into consideration energy security also. So India needs growth as it has a backlog of poverty. Obviously, poverty is also one of the highest in India in the entire world. But the growth that one often sees does not do enough for improving the lives of the poorest, such as by generating employment, and is ecologically harmful at the same time. So size is valuable only when it enhances the well-being of the population. So there are several challenges, because now India is also going to be the world's most populous country. We have the largest size of poverty in India, and we are seeing jobless growth. We have high unemployment rate. Even the inflation is not in a comfortable zone. So all these challenges remain. And when we say that we are going to, or we are like progressing ahead, we are like our GDP growth is good, our economy is resilient, but again, at the same time, it is not generating enough amount of jobs, and it is not benefiting the poorest people the most. There is also increasing economic inequality at the same time. So all these things are there, and these are the main challenges that we are right now facing, and which must be considered and must be taken into account when we are talking about economic growth. So price stability is a must for durable economic recovery. And Reserve Bank of India's decision to raise again its policy repo rate yet again by a smaller quarter percentage point, that was, it was raised by 0.25 percentage, and right now it is at 6 point, the repo rate is at 6.5%. So it reflects a welcome resolve in staying committed to ensuring durable price stability, because the main focus right now is on inflation targeting, given that the Monetary Policy Committee's primary mandate is to steer the retail inflation towards a 4% target, and the core price it gains, the core price gains, they have stayed stuck above and almost at 6% for the last 20 months. So in case of India, the core inflation is sticky and it is still around at 6%. So firstly, that also needs to come down. And the main, when we talk about a retail inflation target, so that is at 4%. So the rate setting panel, it voted for 4-2 majority to continue tightening monetary policy. And so the RBI governor, he emphasized the significance of MPC's unwavering focus on inflation when he noted that the medium-term growth prospects, they would be best strengthened by keeping the inflation expectations anchored and breaking the persistence of the core inflation. So these were highlighted even by the RBI governor, and that inflation remains the key risk to the growth outlook, notwithstanding the easing in the headline print for the retail price gains. So we are seeing that headline inflation is cooling down, and we can say that it is moderating. And it also cautioned that this trend of moderating inflation that we have started to witness, that dissipate as summer are approaching and prices they harden. So commodity prices, they are also expected to see upward pressure globally, given the lifting of most COVID related restrictions, and particularly in case of China. Also, we have intensifying Russia-Ukraine war. Also, there's a possibility that oil cost that can rise and it may go up. And apart from that, so majorly the focus here is on targeting the inflation. So exploring the blue in India-France partnership. So here We are celebrating India and France relationship of 25 years of their strategic partnership, and it presents an important opportunity for both to introspect on their relations. So, signed in 1998, the time-tested strategic partnership, it has continued to gain momentum over shared values, aspirations of peace, stability, and most importantly, their desire for strategic autonomy. So, France, it has emerged as a key trading partner for India with annual trade of around $12.5 billion in 2021-22, and it is 11th largest foreign investor in India with a cumulative investment of $10 billion. And so that is there. And talking about the big picture, so more importantly, it has emerged as a key defense partner for India, also becoming the second largest defense supplier in 2017-21. And France, it has emerged as a major strategic partner for India with crucial defense deals and increased military to military engagement. And a key example of this is the inducting of the French Scorpion conventional submarines built. They are being built in India under the Technology Transfer Agreement of 2005, and the Indian Air Force having received 36 Rafale fighter jets also. So this is there in case of our defense partnership. And apart from that, we are also having joint military exercises, which is named as Varuna for Navy, Garuda is for Air Force, and Shakti is for Army. So this can come up in PT. So you need to remember this thing, and that is there in case of a defense partnership. Apart from that, so Paris has also played a critical role in limiting India's isolation in non-proliferation order after the 1998 nuclear tests that were conducted by India. So in a sign of expanding cooperation, France supports India's bid for permanent membership of the UNSC Council also, and as well as its entry into the nuclear suppliers group. So an area of importance for both in climate change also, where India has supported France in the Paris Agreement, expressing its strong commitment towards mitigating the climate change impact. So, talking about our marine ties, so the deepening of the strategic partnership is also visible in their maritime cooperation. And India and France, they are resident powers of the Indian Ocean and in the Indo-Pacific. The importance of the Indian Ocean region was visible during the visit of French President Emmanuel Macron, who visited India in 2018. And we have a joint strategic vision of India-France cooperation in the Indian Ocean region, which presented a blueprint for a strengthening of the ties. And so our maritime security has further gained momentum as both the countries, they have articulated their common vision for a free, fair, and open Indo-Pacific. So as both the countries, they share a comprehensive strategy for the Indo-Pacific region. So it basically seeks to provide comprehensive solutions for maritime security, for regional cooperation, for the climate change adaptation. So both the countries, they agreed to set up an Indo-Pacific Trilateral Development Cooperation Fund that will support sustainable innovative solutions for countries in the region. So talking about potential, so India's partnership with France, it is built on common values and goals. Both have underlined the importance of maintaining strategic autonomy with a shared understanding of the global risk in many domains. There's a high-level India-France political dialogue also that is going on in defense, maritime, counterterrorism, and Indo-Pacific. So there are now forging ahead with cooperation in issues such as digitization, cybersecurity, green energy, blue economy, ocean sciences, and space. So India and France, they understand each other's interest and dependency and their demands. So be it in relation to China or Russia also. So in a marking of a long strategic partnership of 25 years, a common interest in enhancing the strategic autonomy and improving the resilience, there is much ground ahead for further collaboration between the two countries. So Indians renouncing their citizenship, that is highest since 2011, and the number was somewhere around 1.5 lakh. And the cases pending in the high courts and the Supreme Court, so 59 lakh cases, they are pending in 25 high courts, and Parliament was informed regarding this thing. So there's, as of now, there is obviously a high amount of judicial pendency when we talk about the cases pending, and government refers back the proposal to SEC for reconsideration. So Supreme Court Collegium For reconsideration, amid an ongoing trip between the executive and the judiciary, the procedure to appoint the judges. So we know about this tussle. We've talked about a lot regarding this, and more than 350 satellites launched in India since 2014. So an achievement for us. And so basically, to promote the public-private partnership, a PSU, which is called the New Space India Limited, that has also been established by India. So it is a public-private partnership, New Space India Limited. And in January, we see that equity mutual funds inflow, it hits 4-month high. So there's more infusion when we talk about basically in the share market, specifically by the mutual funds, which was one of the highest in January. Locating China in the Russia-Ukraine war. So China's formal stance on the Russia-Ukraine war conflict, it has been on the lines of all countries deserve respect for their sovereignty and territorial integrity, and that support should be given to all efforts that are conducive to peacefully resolving the crisis. However, outside the realm of the discourse, China's actions do not seem to reflect the same thing, their same stance. And so the Wall Street Journal, it has exposed China's covert assistance to Russia by accessing the Russian customs data compiled by C4ADS, which is an American think tank. So China's efforts to encourage Russia in a limited and covert manner without raising alarms in the West seems to be intended to keep the war going. So we know about strengthened partnership between Russia and China. So Russia, it is China in a way, it is like in a hidden and in a secretive manner, it is supporting Russia in this war. So our NSA says that India will never abandon the people of Afghanistan, and India reiterated its call for an inclusive and representative government in Afghanistan. And our National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, sir, he was declaring that people of Afghanistan, they were among India's foremost priorities. So he was speaking at the fifth regional dialogue on Afghanistan being held in Moscow, and there he was addressing the delegates. So basically, he's saying that India is there with Afghanistan, with the Afghanistani people, and we support inclusive and representative government in Afghanistan. And he said that the well-being and humanitarian needs of the people of Afghanistan would continue to guide India's policy towards Kabul. And he highlighted the heightened threat of terrorism because of the presence of terror groups such as Daesh, Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, and and in the Pakistan region, and is also sought security cooperation between the member states in the dialogue. And he emphasized that Afghanistan territory should not be used for terrorism and that the natural resources of Afghanistan, they should be utilized first for the welfare of Afghanistan. And India has not recognized the Taliban administration in Kabul. However, there's a technical team stationed at the Indian embassy in the Afghanistan capital. So that is there. And so Supreme Court is going to hear the pleas on Hindenburg report today. So this issue has reached the Supreme Court, and women can pray in segregated spaces. So in a landmark decision, the All India Muslim Personal Law Board, it has agreed to permit the Muslim women to offer prayers in mosque. So no prohibition in Islam on women offering namaz in segregated places in the mosque. So the Union Law Minister tells Rajya Sabha that Union government, it is not planning a bill on the appointment of judges. So he says the appointments to the higher judiciary is a collaborative process. Differences between executive and judiciary, they are mutually reconciled to ensure that only an appropriate person is selected. So there's going to be a UP like Global Investor Summit, which would be inaugurated by our Prime Minister. And So US will not sanction India for buying Russian oil. This comes from senior American officials. So they say that US is comfortable with India's position given that its purchase of Russia oil is at rates below the price cap while responding to calls by Ukrainian lawmaker for secondary sanctions against India and China. So the US Assistant Secretary says that I want to be clear, we are not looking to sanction India. Our partnership with India is one of our most consequential relationships. So you can see in this picture, PT Usha chairs the Rajya Sabha amid thumping by the members, and great power involves great responsibility, as said by Franklin D. Roosevelt, was felt by me when I chaired the Rajya Sabha session. I hope to create milestones, and as I undertake this journey with the trust and faith invested in me by my people. So this is what comes from her. So a bullet train project tunnel, which is going to bypass the mangroves, will raise the cost to rupees 10,000 crores. So a few days ago, we talked about the importance of mangroves and like what are the ecological conditions in which they grow, what are the threats, and in which all states do we have mangrove cover in India. So Pakistan signs deal with IMF for stall bailout package. We know about the economic situation in Pakistan. Inflation is at an all-time high. Then their forex reserves are a very lower level. Then their value of exports is declining and that of imports is rising. Their value of their domestic currency is depreciating. So all these situation points definitely towards the economic crisis, and there is at the same time there is political instability also, and there are concerns related to security in the country as well. So North Korea, it unveils record number of intercontinental ballistic missiles. So USA says that Chinese military is behind vast aerial surveillance program, and Washington says a fleet of Chinese balloons is used for spying, outfitted with high-tech equipment and capable of collecting communication signals and other sensitive information. So they have targeted more than 40 countries on 5 continents. So Adani stocks, they are still declining, they're still falling, and this issue goes to the Supreme Court. So let's see how things are going to unfold. And the GST rate structure rationalization has been ruled out as of now. So for better targeting, the government is not in favor of changing the capital gains tax regime too frequently and only capped the capital gains provisions relating to purchase of property at rupees 10 crores for better targeting, as it was meant to be a boost for the housing sector and help the smaller taxpayers and not the bigger assessees. So in Financial Express, let's see what is important for us today. So market growth in India remains stronger in the urban areas than in the rural areas, and we are seeing rural markets broadly flat in value terms with lower volumes. So This is from the CEO of Unilever. So we are seeing strong growth in the urban areas. So our IT minister, Union IT minister says that this year we'll be rolling out digital credit, and the NPCI will take a big lead in that over a period of next 10 to 12 months. And CPSEs to increase the capital expenditure by a quarter during the next fiscal year. So an increase in capital expenditure, and this was the main thing of this year's budget also. So sovereign debt issues to top the G20 finance meet. So government is readying a framework for the regulated digital credit, and that would facilitate a secure digital credit to small and micro businesses as per the regulations of RBI, Information Technology Minister says. And so looking at the sticky core inflation, price pressures, they are still stubborn, and this graph is basically showing the inflation rate in the month of October, November, December 2022 in different sectors like clothing and footwear, in health and education and personal care and effects and household goods and services. So there we can see almost at either at the same level. In case of clothing and footwear, it has declined. In case of health, it has been increasing. Again, in education, it is increasing. In personal care and effects, it has increased by a higher amount. And in this graph, we can see that the pink graph is for the CPI, that is Consumer Price Index, and green one is the CPI core inflation. So it is like not, we do not see much changes in CPI core, so it remains sticky. However, CPI, it has declined to 5.7%, but CPI core CPI is at 6.1%. So that needs to be brought down, and let's see how things are going to be there at the inflation front. So robust demand for the services, non-availability of the cheaper MSME products that inflate the prices. So our external affairs minister says that we have already initiated activities abroad through our cultural centers to emphasize the message that India is the mother of democracy, that India has a pluralistic and consultative tradition that very few societies, if anybody at all, can match. So we should definitely take lessons from the colossal tragedy that we saw in Turkey and Syria and start up their act. So basically, there was a massive earthquake that hit these two countries, and the death toll is massive. So Recep Tayyip Erdogan, he says that it is partially right in saying that it is not always possible to be ready for a disaster of this scale, but the fact that the Turkish government has been collecting a permanent tax since 1999 to raise resources for the earthquake preparedness, and legitimate questions are now being asked on how $4.6 billion raised so far, how they have been used, given there was so much of destruction at such a larger scale. And that is there. So they have been collecting a tax, a permanent tax since 1999 to raise resources for earthquake preparedness. But now, basically, they are being questioned about their preparedness level. So more than 59% of India's land area is under the threat of moderate to severe seismic hazard, while the hill stations of Himachal Pradesh, Uttaranchal, and the Union Territories of Jammu and Kashmir lying in seismic zone 5. So seismic zone 5 is the highest, it has the highest seismicity, and large parts of the national capital region, they are in zone 4. So zone 4, as disaster management experts say, denotes fairly high seismicity, with quakes here being of magnitude of between 5 to 6 on the Richter scale. So these areas, they can see occasionally 7 to 8 magnitude of earthquakes as well. So for perspective, Turkey's earthquake measured 7.8, and according to the National Disaster Management Authority, NDMA, the mushrooming of the extensive unscientific construction across the country, thanks to ever increasing urbanization pressures, and heightens India's risk of earthquake losses. So again, here also the main thing or the main concern is unscientific construction activities, and obviously we are seeing the result of this in Joshimath also. So against this backdrop, adequate preparedness could mean the difference between catastrophe and a crisis. So if we are adequately prepared to deal with any situation in future, that could make a difference between a catastrophe and a crisis. And the center, state, and the local governments, they must step up their acts significantly. And a little over 94% of the houses in NCR, in the NCT, they still face moderate to high quake damage risk, almost 94% of the houses. So like with many other areas of governance in India, earthquake preparedness suffers from a wide gap between policy and implementation. So the National Building Code 2016, drafted by the Bureau of Indian Standards, it details what can be done to make the buildings earthquake proof, or at the very least minimize the damage if there is an earthquake. And there's a set of simplified guidelines for earthquake safety of buildings accompany this. So that should be there, and these are some of the missing links that exist. There are a lot of gap when it comes to policy and the implementation. We have a national building code, there is unscientific construction activities going on, and despite knowing that we lie in seismic zone 5 and 4, so the earthquake preparedness becomes very, very important in this situation. And apart from that, so the actual deficit is in awareness among the masses and the pace of implementation of the existing policies and compliances by the government. And there is no deficit of technology. Top rank public funded institutes in the country, they have developed several low cost methods for earthquake proofing. But again, there is a gap when it comes to implementation. And we are seeing that South Indian states, they are driving the electric vehicles uptake. So we are seeing more people buying electric vehicles in the South Indian states. So Kerala leads in the electric passenger vehicle sales, with you can see that here it is given the penetration level of these vehicles. So Kerala has 2, Maharashtra has 1.9, then Delhi we have 1.8, Karnataka, and then we have Tamil Nadu. So for overall India, it is 0.8. So Delhi, it is ahead in electric two-wheeler penetration level. And UP leads in electric three-vehicle sales. So here, lastly, we'll be taking up this thing regarding the crackdown on the digital lending apps. So there is a panic and confusion in India's digital lending space after basically the central government, it ordered the internet service providers and the app stores to block 94 loan apps that have Chinese links or they have not operated by the entities regulated by RBI. So the Electronics and Information Technology Ministry ordered blocking of 232 apps facilitating betting, gambling, money laundering, and unauthorized lending across the Prasar Bharati and other aware of this matter. And so these are the apps which have been blocked. And apart from that, there's a likely reason for the order is the data privacy issue, especially with the apps that have Chinese links. And there is unserious interest rates and the harassment of the borrowers by some upon delay, obviously when there is a delay in the repayment, so there is harassment. So RBI and the blocking of the loan apps. So RBI has given a list of apps being used by its regulated entities such as the non-banking financial companies to the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, which in turn it has shared the list with the app downloaded platforms such as Google Play Store and requested them to ensure that they host only the apps figuring on the list only. So these digital lending apps and the fintech players, they have sought reasons from the MeToo regarding this ban, and the government has started discussions with the digital lending companies. They've asked them to furnish the details regarding their shareholding patterns, their board compositions, and the documents to show that they are authorized by RBI to operate. So you don't have to get tricked into all these apps. And apart from that, Section 69A of the Information Technology Act, the government has the power to restrict the access to any content to protect the sovereignty, integrity of the country, security of the state, friendly relations with the foreign states, or for public order. And according to Enforcement Directorate, it has seized rupees 860 crores under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. And according to it, ED's investigation points at the proceeds of such launderings being routed by the accused persons or entities through such illegal loan apps. So that's how like they are basically functioning. So that's all for today. Thank you for joining in Sarkari. I hope you've understood the key six and you'll get the PDF link in the description box. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, share this video as much as possible.